Assalamu alaikum, Nadhra. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. I'm very well, Farhan.
That's great. And it's really an honor that you are here on our show today. And we are going to have a discussion on the teacher's role as a leader in a society, in a classroom, and might be, as a whole nation. So that's what we're going to talk about. But before that, I want you to tell us that who you are, your qualification, your education, and where do you work and all.
Well, that's that could take a while, but I'll try to wrap it up in as short a sentence as possible. I I'm an architectural and art historian, and I teach art history at LUMS in Lahore.
All right.
And I've been in the teaching kind of profession for almost all my life. And art history is something which is like a passion to me. But my undergrad and my master's degrees were in graphic design. So for the first many years of my life, I not only studied advertising, but I also practiced it and taught it. And then something happened, and I wanted to get into higher studies, and the only option for a doctorate was to get into art history. So I did that, and I'm very happy to be where I am.
Great. And where were you practicing that advertisement thing?
Advertising, I worked for Publicis. There was an advertising agency in Lahore.
All right.
It wasn't for a very long time, but a short stint. But I really enjoyed my life, and then I had the possibility of teaching advertising at NCBA in Lahore for again maybe a year and a half or something like that.
Right.
And then later setting up an advertising graphic design department at the Lahore College University, where I was 5 years. From that point onwards, the change in my life took place, and I'm really thankful to Allah for that. I got into my PhD studies, which were art history. So I started working on Sikh architecture, and finally my thesis resulted in a book that was published in 2018. Ever since then, it's been more and more research that keeps taking me to not only Sikh monuments of significance and our Sikh heritage, but also the Mughal heritage and every other bit of heritage that we have in Pakistan and in the region, and that is of great significance to us all.
True.
And this is what I teach, and this is what I try to draw my students' attention to take ownership of what we have in terms of our culture and our heritage, because this is the past is what defines us. It defines us today, and this is what we take into the future or send into the future if we're not there.
Good, very good. Okay, and just as you worked in an advertising agency, and what made you come to this teaching profession? Because it's very common. People say that most of the teachers are the accidental teacher. They get the teaching profession just because they were not getting any other job. But of course, you were on a job, and you chose to join this profession. So how did that happen?
Well, it's a very interesting story. When I was in my final year of my master's, the question did come up as to what I would do. I already had a family by that time. My daughter was young, and to be honest, I did not want to become a teacher because I thought the teaching profession, in the general sense of it, or the old-fashioned way of teaching, that the way it used to be was a kind of a monotonous job. You go to this class, you have a set syllabus, you keep repeating yourself day in and day out, and there is very little possibility for you to bring your own creativity to it.
True.
But gradually, when I realized that I started teaching advertising at the beginning and some art history. What I realized at the very inception, at the outset, was that my discipline was something that required everyday experiences to be brought into and shared with the students. And that kind of takes care of the monotony that I was afraid of. And, from that point onwards, there was never, no looking back. I really enjoyed teaching, interacting with young people is something that, kind of keeps on enhancing your own knowledge. And that is the most brilliant part of teaching.
Great.
Younger students every year, every semester coming in with their own worldviews, their own starry eyes, and their beautiful, brilliant smiles, and that just lights up your heart and mind. And you want to give them the best that you have, and you kind of keep on furnishing your own knowledge. You keep on polishing and burnishing it, so you can assist them go on with stepping on your knowledge to find more for themselves. So this is what keeps me going, and I really enjoy teaching, and I would probably do it to the last moment of my life.
Absolutely. And now tell me, I mean, just as you were saying that initially you didn't want to become a teacher, but then you came into this profession. If I ask you a question about expectations versus real life experiences, the professional experiences, so what were your expectations from this profession, and how was the experience? Were you expecting the same, or were you expecting better, or I mean, how was it?
I mean, things, of course, change as you grow old, as you experience different institutions. Each institution has its own, a certain environment that sometimes does not tally with what your expectations may be. So I've changed institutions, and finally I am in a place where, that I rate as the topmost institution in the entire world. I have my space, which is extremely important for a researcher and a teacher. I design my own courses. I, use my own strategy of teaching it. I incorporate my latest research into every course, and, I'm never asked a question about it. So I get to do what I'm passionate about, and that is the best thing that you can ask for. Your passion becomes your livelihood or your career. What else can you ask for?
That's great. All right. So just as you were saying that every new year you get new students, new energy, new smile, new experiences, and you want to give them the best they want to have. But there is also another perception in the society that students nowadays, or might be the educational institution or teachers take it like, students are not willing to learn anymore. They do not have the same behavior or attitude toward their studies, learning what they used to have when they were the students. How do you take it?
Well, the batch is always a mixed batch. There are students who are absolutely, committed to learning more. There are students who are a bit relaxed about it, and once in a while you get one or two who are kind of couldn't care less about where they were. But again, it is, I seriously and honestly believe that it is the teacher's duty to pick up these backbenchers and not let them be where they want to be. There are a million factors that kind of factor into making them who they are. Every child is born with an innate curiosity. Every little child growing up, crawling and then walking, touching everything, smelling everything, tasting everything that comes into his or her reach, putting it into their mouth, is something that we see every day. We have kids around us, we see them doing all of this. What is it? It is their innate curiosity that human mind is born with. And to quench that curiosity, then it becomes the duty of the teacher to give them what they should be getting from one particular aspect or one particular environment that we have. Sometimes, due to certain circumstances, due to certain difficulties, problems, issues, this curiosity gets killed or maybe dismissed. And that makes them not receptive to what they may confront. And when one gets a student like this, it is again not the student's duty. Part of that is the student's duty, but
Hmm.
a large onus actually falls on the teacher to
Hmm.
reach out and try and understand, what went wrong.
Hmm.
Let's sit together, let's discuss it, and let's start working on it.
Hmm.
And
Great.
you do get a good response. It's not, efforts are not always rejected, they're not always fruitless. You do get a little bit out of it, and I
Hmm.
think that is what is important. That is something that should be highlighted more, talked about more.
Hmm.
Again, and leaving students where they may be, and kind of dismissing them as not interested in my
Hmm.
course, I couldn't care less, is not the right attitude. As teachers, it is our responsibility to help them in every matter that we possibly can.
You've given a very good perspective that first we have to work on their curiosity. Once we get that, after that they'll be willing to listen to us whatsoever we want to say. And secondly, you were saying that it's all about the teacher responsibility. That is also true because students, when they come and join and they are sitting on the first class, they all are sitting silently, and the way they behave to the teacher, that is always how they get treated by the teacher. So teacher is more like a leader in a classroom. So my question is, how do you see teachers in the current era? Are they at the level where they should be? And secondly, I mean, why am I asking this question is because I mean there are a few people who believe that teachers are losing their value in the society or in the market, might be, or they are not the role models as they were supposed to be or as they should be. So how do you see teachers nowadays, and what are the things that they should do and what are the things that they should not do while they are in the classroom or even in the society?
Well, Farhan, that's a huge responsibility you're putting on my shoulders, because I can speak for myself. I don't feel that I'm in a position to talk about or to give advice to other teachers. I'm always, I feel that I'm always in a position to learn from others,
Hmm.
from my students, from my colleagues.
Hmm.
So I can speak for myself. The way I take my responsibility, or I feel about my own responsibility as a teacher,
Hmm.
is that, again, as I said, I need to keep on learning more. I need to be in touch with contemporary practices in of
Hmm.
whatever discipline I profess to be practicing and passing on to my students. I need to know what is going on in the world around the area,
Hmm.
because whatever I give in small bits and pieces to my students should not be outdated.
Hmm.
They
Good.
should not step out of my class and my session and realize that, oh my God, what I got today was a complete waste of time. This
Hmm.
is not the way things are anymore. So, what I believe is that the students' time, the time that we interact with them, is extremely precious for them. It is not as precious to us, because we have passed through the period where this time could have kind of made us or broken us. But
Hmm.
this is crucial for the students. They're never going to be in their first year again. They're never going to be in their second year. Every bit of that first year, or every bit of that passage, or the journey that they have embarked upon
Hmm.
as students, is extremely crucial to what becomes of them.
Hmm.
So each class, each minute of that class is precious. That cannot be wasted. That cannot be taken for granted. Because this every little bit, again, I probably repetitively use a kind of an example, which is when I'm talking to my history class, I ask them to imagine every chapter as a single link in a chain. You take out one page of that chapter and the link will be broken, and you will not be able to make sense of what is said next,
Hmm.
because you cannot connect it to an earlier occurrence,
Hmm.
and everything goes kind of haywire in your head, and everything gets lost. So I'll take the same kind of example again. Every little bit, every class, every hour, if you break down to every minute of a student's life is like a chain, is a link in a chain. We break a lot of links in that chain. The chain is not going to pull anything. It'll be a small piece here and there. It won't have the strength that an unbroken chain would have. So I think teachers, I'm sure everyone does. But again, as we talk about these things, sometimes that certain ideas and certain concepts that are lying latent in one's head come to the fore, and then one starts paying more attention to it. So I think it's the teacher's duty to really care that the time that he or she has with the students is extremely precious from the student's perspective. And we have to disseminate. We have to give them what they've come to us. We cannot waste any of it. And again, there are many aspects and many angles of looking at what this wastage could mean as, giving them outdated knowledge, giving them, not inspiring them enough to take up a challenge or an assignment is also, being unfair to them. One has to make it enticing. One has to make it, pitch it as something which is going to bring about a major change in their understanding of that particular topic. And then, pushing them to wherever you can push them, because one has to, kind of challenge the curiosity, as you said, to an extent where they want to take charge of a situation. And once the students take charge, then there is no going back. Then they would, this challenge would propel them forward. So this is the energy that you have to invest in a teaching session. You don't bore them to death, in your monologue. If I continue saying whatever is in my head without encouraging my students to come and ask questions, they're definitely going to fall asleep and or just leave my session, whether physically walk out of the classroom or just switch off their mic and camera if it's an online session. And, they'll kind of say, this crazy professor, whatever, who cares? Yeah. I have better things to do in life. But, if you continue to engage them, if you continue to make them smile, you crack a joke once in a while, you put in an act for a minute, or you ask them to sing a song for you. That keeps the conversation going. It keeps, and within that conversation, you pass on the content that is important. You encourage them to read more. You invite them to express their own impression of whatever it may be. And it works for both the parties. It works for the students. It works for the teacher as well.
That's wonderful. So, this is this is another side that you are showing today, because in the institutions, what happens, teachers are not allowed to do other things. Just as you were saying in the beginning, that we are supposed to follow one syllabus structure in the classes, and we are always get questioned on the basis of that. That could be the reason that teachers are always so bound to talk about the content only, and they cannot create the bonding, the relationship with the student, and they lose that. But yeah, that's a good suggestion that we should do it, and we should be working on the relationship first, and then the content comes on the second priority. Moving on, just as you were saying, that teacher should not be providing the outdated data, obsolete information to the student. Now, this is also, this takes us toward the education system. This takes us toward the courses. This takes us toward the teacher's own knowledge. And just as you were mentioning that your field is so fortunate that you have to get new knowledge and you have to get new experiences every day so that you would be able to share those things with your students. What about those subjects where these things are not possible and teachers take it like, even if we talk about mathematics, if we talk about English, if we talk about Urdu, Pakistan studies and all, and they say, this is the same course. This is the same course outline we're following every year. There's nothing to brush up our own skill. There's nothing to learn more. There's nothing to get more knowledge and all. How about those teachers, those subjects? What would be your suggestion to the teachers and to the institutions, or might be to the syllabus, the people who are setting the syllabus might be the education department as well?
Well, Farhan, the first thing is that all of these disciplines that you've named are about human beings, right? Urdu is the language, people speak it. People
True.
speak it in a variety of different ways. We
Hmm.
have a very rich heritage of Urdu language and literature. So I cannot, for a fraction of a second, imagine this to be a dull interaction. The syllabus may be the same. It may be kind of 100 years old, but you pick up a book that was published 200 years ago, and I'd be the most enthusiastic reader of that old text, because it would tell us about people who wrote it, about their
Right.
lives, about their perspective, their worldviews.
Hmm.
So how can that be dull? These were human beings. They had many facets to their personalities. English language, again, all languages for that matter. As before we started recording, as I expressed, languages are very dear to my heart.
True.
Let's move over to maybe political history,
Hmm.
Pakistan studies. Um, History is again about people, isn't it?
True. It is.
Um, the only thing that we need to do is make things relevant to our students
Hmm.
today.
Great.
Instead of teaching them and telling them in a monologue about people who existed somewhere in a bubble,
Hmm.
who have nothing to do with us anymore, would make it dull and drab and uninspiring.
Good.
But it is up to the teacher to make connections. If the Pakistan movement happened, look at what it did to people living in your city. For example, again, I'm sure history teachers have better methodologies and engage in these conversations in a million other ways. Um, but any time that you start making connections between what has gone by that you have no access to, you can do that by diving into the archives. You can do that by looking at another perspective. So you go around that situation instead of using a single point perspective and looking at it with your kind of dulled head mind, of taking into account only one angle of engaging with a particular text or a particular incident.
Hmm.
You go around the situation, you talk to more people. You encourage students to, if it's Pakistan movement or partition or any of that sort, you ask your students to reach out to older generations who may have witnessed it or who may have actually heard stories about it. Collect those stories,
Hmm.
and you get a new perspective.
Great.
The textbook remains the same, the passages remain the same. You cannot change history, but you can
Hmm.
change the way of looking at history. That is up to you. That is,
Great.
within your domain. Nobody can take it from you.
Hmm. True.
So, finding inviting ideas, finding inspirational themes to tackle with things that are maybe dull and drab or difficult for students.
Hmm.
I'm sure we can all contribute a little bit to the profession that we are a part of.
Great. Okay. I mean, it's a wonderful answer, by the way, that it's not only about the content, it's more about the teacher again. So, in your perspective, everything is, I mean, teacher is exactly the funnel through which every knowledge, every student has to pass through. So, it's more about the teacher's responsibility to take things more interactive and to make it more interactive and to take it toward the more knowledge side and engage the students. That's great. Now, tell me, how do you see the education system of Pakistan in general? And what are the things which you take it like these are marvelous, these are outstanding, and what are the things that we need to work on?
I think the very first thing, Farhan, is that we need to open up our education system to our regional languages.
Hmm, great.
Making English mandatory for every student who has not had the opportunity to study in an English medium school, where they cannot engage in a worthwhile, meaningful conversation in this language, is crucial to their future. We are killing our talent. We are dismissing our youth, a large number of our youth, from entering into a competitive environment where they can engage in a healthy competition with others who have had the opportunity of, of getting this. So, there has to be equality. And we need to get rid of this divide. I would have loved to give this interview or this conversation in Urdu. So, the reach among the youth in Pakistan would have been larger, much larger. So I think language has become a barrier now. More than opening spaces up, it is again opening spaces up for a select few. And that really bothers me. That really, worries me, because this divide is something that we must get rid of as soon as possible. We must all stand united. We must give equal opportunities to every single person across the country who has the merit or who has the will to go forward. We should be extending our hands. We should be, propelling them forward. We should be pushing them. We should be, creating spaces and environments where they can shine and where they can, take things in their own hands. Because I have full faith in the younger generation. The younger minds are definitely brighter than ours, because they have everything that we have worked towards during our lifetimes. We should be there to hand our achievements to them as a building block that they can use to step on and build forward, go forward, move upwards. So I believe that, language, instead of facilitating students, becomes a huge barrier, because, higher education, then they students have to fight on two fronts at the same time. It is the battle of the content that they need to digest and make sense of.
True.
But that content is coming in a language that they have, very they have difficulty in understanding. So that becomes unfair, So this needs to be taken care of. I don't know how. It's going to be a long route. We cannot provide English medium schools to our entire population. That is not possible. But again, one also needs to keep in mind is the fact that English language is important. It opens doors to to people outside Pakistan who do not, we cannot converse with them in our own regional languages, in our own mother tongue. So it kind of bridges gaps there. But this bridge then should not be imagined as a wall among people of the same country. It should still remain a bridge of bridging people, bringing people together.
Great.
So this is something that I,
and I really admire your perception, what you were saying before this interview, that instead of learning other languages, the languages from other countries, just like French, Germany, Chinese, or something like that, it's better that we should first learn our own languages, just like Sindhi, Pashto, and all. And that is
Farsi,
yeah, Farsi, it's there. I mean, it's there in BA, but I don't know like how students understand that, because they again.
But it's not mandatory, Farhan. None of these, none of our own languages. We must own all of them. Urdu may be our national language, but every other language is also equally important. So none of these, our own languages are mandatory. We're not required in elementary school to at least learn one language that we can have a decent conversation in or can write, reasonably well. We're not asked to do that. We have this litmus of passing the English language. Okay, fine, to some extent, but the human mind is capable of learning, at least 3 to 4 languages with great ease, especially when you're younger. And there used to be a time where, the traditional method of teaching and learning in pre-modern times, medieval times, or pre-colonial times, if I may put it that way, where people were taught Arabic and Persian and their own mother tongue of whichever part of the subcontinent they may have been. So 3 to 4 language and a facility to kind of switch from one language to another without compromising your own mother tongue
Hmm.
was the norm.
Good.
And now, unfortunately, what we have is that we compromise our own mother tongue and then, use that debris to build just one language. So that is not fair. In
Hmm.
all honesty, that is not fair
That's
because
correct.
we're losing out on our own identity. We are gradually growing as a nation that is unhappy with themselves. We're
Hmm.
unhappy with the way we look. We're unhappy with the way we dress.
Hmm.
Why? I think the root cause is that we're unhappy with our language. If we
Hmm.
start taking pride in our language, we will start taking pride in everything that the language brings to us.
Hmm.
And what does it bring? It brings people close to each other. You start accepting people, they become a close part of your life. And with people come in their own habits, their own cultures, everything that they do, and, in a regular day to day life. So you become you accept all of that, you start respecting that, and that creates bonds. And
Great.
these bonds are missing in our,
Hmm.
at least in Pakistan, from one region to another.
Well,
So these bonds need to be strengthened.
well, Nadhra, I was having an interview with with a lady from British Council. That was day before yesterday, and she is also a English language trainer. And she was saying people come to me and they say we want to learn American accent, and she said, I asked them, why do you want to learn American accent? Are you American? Do you live in America? You live in Pakistan. Why do you want to adopt that? I mean, why do you want to copy that accent? Of course, I mean, speak the way you can. I mean, English in Pakistan, it has its own accent. In India, they have their own accent. Accept the way you are. I mean, this is also bit this is a true dilemma we have in our society, that we are just trying to be someone else, and we don't want to be what we are. We don't want to accept that, and we don't want to work on that. We don't want to understand, define it what we are, and where we can reach. That's true, it's a very good
Farhan,
suggestion of yours.
we need to again, give this particular situation a historical perspective.
Hmm.
um, this historical perspective can unravel the reasons behind this.
Hmm.
Um, you know, um, the colonial rule made sure that everything that was indigenous was dismissed.
Hmm.
Language was the first, and everything else follows automatically. You cut off the roots of a language among a community, and everything kind of becomes shambles. So we need to understand, what these young people may have been aspiring to learn was for a good reason. Because they kind of, they have grown up to understand that their success is linked to this language and in a particular way of uttering it. So they're not mistaken in saying what they say. As teachers, again, collectively, we have to undo this. And again, I think probably the first steps are going to be baby steps. They're going to be very tiny, but gradually, if we engage in these conversations and we start embracing
Hmm.
whatever is ours with great pride, things will move in the right direction.
True.
It is the pride that has been crushed, Farhan.
Hmm.
Our pride in who we are has been crushed. We need to realize that. And that was done, with a purpose. And the sooner we realize what the purpose behind this was, the better it will be, because we will be in a position to pick up our pieces and reconstruct ourselves and our identities for our future.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, Nudra, such an intellectual talk I had with you today, and all the suggestions that you were giving related to the teachers and what are the real causes why we are not working or why we are not getting the results what we should be getting. I believe, like from your talk, I take it like the teacher. I mean, the whole responsibility is on the teachers right now. That's why we call them the nation builders. And yes, true teachers should take the responsibility, and although you were not directly relating your answers to the teachers, and you were relating it to yourself, but that was a wonderful approach to do that. But your suggestions, your ideas, and the way, the method of teaching that you were sharing, and the point that you were sharing, that we should be exploring more and giving new information to the students and create curiosity in the student, that was wonderful. And second, last thing that you said, that was about like we should be learning in our own language, instead of confusing a student into two things, learning a language and getting knowledge. It's better that he should only be concerned about getting knowledge, getting exposure, vision, and all. Well, that's so wonderful, and we really appreciate it that you gave us your time, just as I said in the beginning. And it's always so nice to talk to intellectual people like you. I am so inspired, and I'm so blessed that we met you and I conducted your interview today.